Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Lighthouse sessions. I'm excited. I have my new friend Robyn with me here today. Robyn Goldenberg, why don't you just introduce yourself, tell my audience a little bit about who you are, and then we're going to get into entrepreneurs, business owners, and all kinds of fun stuff.
Sure, sounds great. Thanks, Jeff. So my name is Robyn Goldenberg. I'm the president of Strategy Leaders. We work with small business owners to help them build scalable and sustainable businesses that don't drag them down and, um, have negative impacts on them. I am also the co-founder of Fine Staff, and I also run Bad Bee Marketing. And I'm also a mom of three, so I get it. Just chaos, lots of chaos.
And I think I read somewhere you're also a power lifter.
I am a strongman, but yes, it's close enough.
Okay, so and by the way, one of my fascinating things is most of my guests, I ask them what they do, and they've got multiple businesses. So let's dive right in, because I personally believe the most important thing an entrepreneur or business owner can hear is you're not alone. And I know that's important to you. So why is it important to you, and what do you wish people knew?
So to reiterate, business owners, you're not alone. That's probably my main point here, but I run three businesses. My husband owns businesses. I know that we as business owners tend to put ourselves in these silos. No one can understand our burdens. Excuse me. Everything has to sit on our shoulders. This is the life I chose, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are people and resources out there and communities out there that can help kind of lessen that feeling of being alone, and that you don't have to bear this burden by yourself. And also, your business doesn't have to be a burden unless you're making it that way. But it requires a complete change in mentality to say, no, like, I'm going to set my boundaries with my business. This is like, setting your boundaries with people, right? It's similar with your businesses. This is not going to drain me. You are not going to drain me. And I'm going to set the boundaries so that I come first.
And it is fascinating, because you and I are going to have a lot to talk about. One of the things I've noticed is most business owners don't know that they don't have boundaries. So let's talk about what that feels like, because I feel like you and I can uncover this so that people can go, oh my God, that's me.
Yeah. Have you ever been tried to delegate a task to someone and you've said, I'll do it. It's faster if I do it instead of you. It's faster if I do it instead of if I train someone to do it. You don't have boundaries in your business. Or if you wake up first thing in the morning and you're immediately checking your emails, you don't have boundaries, right? So if you go home in your business, you just feel drained when you get home, and then you've got to deal with your kids and you need to show up for your partner, or you want to go to the gym, which is kind of my thing. And you can't, you're just exhausted. You have boundary issues. We all do. It's just like we're just like that as business owners. I don't know. We just love to feel the suffering because I think it makes us feel useful. I think the other part is that when we talk to people who aren't business owners, the first thing I hear is, yeah, it's so great. You get to set your own hours. Yeah, I get to set all of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I pick which 24 I work every day.
Exactly. Or you chose this life, so you should just suffer. No, you chose this life so you don't have to suffer, right? So you can set your own schedule, theoretically, and run your business how you want it to be run, not have your business run you.
I love that. And I think, I want to point out that there's no blame or shame here, because a lot of people, I love way back when in E-Myth, Michael Gerber said they have that entrepreneurial seizure. And I had that where it was like, I'm working for a bunch of morons. I'm going to go work for myself. And turns out my new boss, was a lunatic. I mean, he expected 24/7.
Yeah.
And the hardest thing for me as a business owner was the day I realized I was working 24/7. I mean, I literally worked 100-hour weeks, and my body started shutting down, and I'm like, I'm not human. I don't have time for this. And then I went, maybe that's the problem.
Yeah. I think we just at some point decide like, well, I need to be to your point, a superhuman to
Yeah,
run this business, but that's absolutely not the case. If you're, and listen, again, no judgment. Like, I'm not going to lie to you and say that last week I didn't cry in the shower because I was overwhelmed. Like, that happens. It just happens. That's just life.
that's a
But
Tuesday, right?
yeah, but it doesn't need to be every, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? Like, that's
Yeah,
where you really, like, if you're starting to feel that impact, and if your partner or your spouse, whatever, your home life is starting to feel the impact of you just biting everyone's heads off, or just not being yourself, you're not able to show up. That's a warning sign that, we're already at that point, right? So we can start to make kind of, you don't have to make huge changes. I think that's where we make a lot of mistakes is like, I everyone will tell you I hate New Year's resolutions. It's like I'm anti New Year's resolution because I think conceptually it's great, right? To be like, new year, new me, I'm gonna do this, this, and this. But you go into the new year, that's a lot of pressure to be
yeah.
like, I'm gonna eat better. I'm gonna go to the gym every day. I'm gonna delegate to my assistant, whatever it might be, right? You're trying to get all these new habits and changes in your life. And that is chaos and you're already living it just isn't sustainable, and so it only lasts, I think, when you look at the statistics of like drop off for New Year's, especially in the gym, it's like by the end of January, I think it's like a 40% drop off.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the funny thing is when we set all of these big, ambitious goals, we set ourselves up for failure because our brains are wired to maintain status quo. We like security, we like consistency, and even positive change, our body sees it as a threat.
Yep.
And I think when I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you hear this a lot too, most of them, they go into business because they're really good at whatever it is their business is about, and all of a sudden they have to learn marketing, sales, etc., and then they don't know how to safely put any of those down. So let's talk about the people you work with. What are the kind of things you hear them say before they come and meet you? What lies are they believing about themselves? Let's call it what it is.
Perfect. Well, I will say so in before I work with a client, we do kind of a couple screening calls. And it is as much for them to get to know me, right? And make sure that I'm the right fit for them, but also that they're the right fit for me. And we do like a little survey and it's like, okay, who's your CEO, right? And they're always like, oh, it's me. Who's your head of HR? Well, I guess that's me. Who's your head of sales? Oh, that's me. Who's your head of marketing? Oh, that's also me. Who's your head of finance? Well, I got a bookkeeper and she does but it's really me. So we start to have these conversations and I say, okay, well, is this sustainable, right? Can you grow your business if you're in charge of every theoretical department in your business? And they're like, well, I guess not. I'm like, well, okay, so how do we start to imagine the tools and the people that we need in place to really scale this? But what I hear a lot is, well, it's not that bad. I can just keep doing this indefinitely.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not
and
human. I'm superhuman. I
yeah,
don't
it's
need
fine.
that.
It's fine. I think the biggest issue is that right now, or in the last couple of years, we've really seen this increase in hustle culture. I think it actually started during COVID when people went home and they're like, I can have a side business because I work from home now and my boss won't know. So let me open this Etsy shop, which is great. I love that for you. However, it doesn't work for seven-figure businesses and up, right? That you can't hustle culture your way to sustainable growth. But you have people, and I love reading stuff from like Alex Hormozy and these guys just because I like the information, but it isn't, in my opinion, the best way to have what people like to call work-life balance, I guess, but to find this balance and set those boundaries, because you have these guys like saying, I'll work 100-hour week. And I saw an email during the holidays from Hormozy that was like, I work through the holidays because why not? No one needs holidays. like, no, people, you need to rest. Like, it's okay to rest. It's not a weakness. And so, but we're, as business owners, we're getting all this feedback, right? From LinkedIn, from Instagram, from
Yeah.
scrolling these videos mindlessly in our bed, right? Like, and it just becomes really hard to filter out the noise.
I love that, and I also absolutely reject hustle culture. And one of the things that bugs me the most is the lack of distinction of what one should hustle doing. So, if you are the janitor all the way up to CEO, most people are hustling at all levels. And let's be honest, the CEO, the strategic level, almost always gets skipped because, well, I'm
100%.
exhausted from cleaning the toilets.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
And I think it's a different, if you read behind the lines of these people who are actually really, really like Alex Hormozy, their version of hustle culture is at the strategic level. They're hustling big leverage, not little tiny, moving little weights that don't accumulate anything. I mean, it's like going to the gym and touching 1,000 pieces of equipment. That's not a workout.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other part is that in this hustle culture is the default is I was like, well, you just need systems. What does that mean? I I have lots of systems. I can tell you that I worked with a client, a business owner, about 6 million in revenue. He has a full team, and he hired a head of sales, and her first job was to write SOPs because he didn't have them. I'm like,
Yeah.
you have been in business 20 years.
Yep.
You've gotten this far. Maybe we don't need to write 40 SOPs in a month because no one's going to learn them or use them because
Yep.
they're already doing it, right? Your team is already functioning. But to your point, this hustle culture and where you put your brain effort, right? I really like to typically block out my mornings for strategic work, to work on my business, right? Or to block out whatever your best thinking time is. Mine is the mornings. My husband likes to work in the afternoons, right? So we work very differently. He's infamous for like 9 a.m. being like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm working." Uh, um, but block your calendar. Say, no, this is my time to really think about how do I grow this business? How do I generate revenue? My strong feeling is that as a business owner, it is your job to grow the business with your team, obviously, but you set the pace and you set the standards and you set the direction on where we're going. And your number one job should be revenue generating activities because ultimately you are the most expensive employee in your business.
Yep.
So stop cleaning the toilets and start doing sales, even if it's like getting in the habit of like following up on leads. I don't like making calls. I'm a millennial. We hate making calls. But I know that if I follow up on my webinar leads or whatever that might be, or if someone I met at a networking event, like that is going to grow my business more than me sitting, at my desk and scrolling LinkedIn for fun, which
Yeah.
I do. That's a bad habit of mine. And so you have to just put your brain to where it's going to actually benefit your business and figure out what you can delegate, right? So I have an assistant. She's amazing. But she goes through my emails in the morning. Like, otherwise I'll do it, but it'll take me hours because I'll
Yeah.
read run and then be like, oh, I should respond to that. Let me go do this other task that's somehow related to this in my brain. And she can just go through and be like, delete, delete, flag, delete, delete. And she gives me a list, right?
Yeah.
So it's these like little things where you don't need to spend your energy on.
I love that. And, there's a lot I want to pull out of that. But the big one that came up as you were talking was that the very first boundary an entrepreneur should be setting is in their calendar. Because, and it goes back to the days of Stephen Covey, where he talks about things that are urgent but not important. And, they're the little fires that either pop up or we light and then we have to fight. But strategy always gets relegated to next quarter.
Yep.
And I think for me, that was the biggest when I set boundaries in my calendar and said, okay, every day from this time to this time, I do nothing but strategic thinking. That makes me clear on what the cash. And by the way, between you and me, I am disturbed how many business owners don't understand the topic of revenue generating activities.
Oh.
I'm going to be really mean and say most of them even don't understand the difference between revenue generating and cash producing.
That would be true, yes.
I've actually seen, I saw one business, 32 million in annual revenues. They went bankrupt because they didn't have a collection policy.
Ouch.
So their salespeople were closing deals, and it was fascinating because they worked with large oil companies. They had to pay their bills net 15, and their bills were like 250,000 for this, 250,000 for that. 50% profit margin, but their clients paid a year later.
Yikes.
And they went broke because they had all of their current taxes, payroll, rent, everything came due. And they had, when they went bankrupt, they had something like 30 million in receivables.
That's nuts.
It was just, wow. So
that one hurts, like makes me nauseous a little bit to think about that. I'm not in my QuickBooks every day. I have a wonderful woman named Linda, and she's my head of finance. And
hi, Linda.
But Linda's the best. But she every week is like, here's what we have open, even if it's like $50, which is rare because that's not really my price point. But even negative, like seemingly minimal things, she'll be like, hey, we need to collect on this, or it's important. We saw this a lot during COVID. I have a lot of clients in the chauffeur transportation, hospitality, limousine space. And when COVID hit, so the way they work is if you are traveling and you need to go to Miami, your limo provider should theoretically be able to book you in Miami for your car with their affiliate, like a partnership network, basically. Yeah. And what we saw was that exactly sort of this like payment terms were wrong, right? So I have to pay for my car to get you to the airport, whatever it is, but then the affiliate payments terms might be like 90 days, right? Mm-hmm. But I've already paid to service this customer. And so we saw is like all these companies, and not just in the limo space, they became the banks for other businesses. Yeah. Because they never had clear payment terms, or they never had a need to distrust, right, that they might not get paid. And you see this a lot in the manufacturing space too, right? Because you got to buy equipment, you got to buy these things to make the things that you make. Yeah. That's very, very well spoken. And
I talk in terms of thingamajigs and whatchamacallit, so
perfect,
we're good.
Perfect. But yes, I would say like when you're talking revenue generating activities, that's your strategy work, right? Your sales follow-ups, your marketing. Yeah. I know I am a big proponent of marketing, but I know a lot of businesses see it as a cost center. It's not. That's an investment in your business. It is a growth center. And then on your are you even doing collections, right? Or how long are you waiting to close out your invoices or whatever? Do you and your vendors have the same agreements on payment terms? And those are things that you need people that have your back in your business to say, even if it's an outsourced bookkeeper or your accountant or whatever, saying, hey, this month it looks like we were a little delayed here on collections versus paying bills. We should be on top. You got to have someone that's going to watch your back, because to your point, they're all wearing this, we're all wearing multiple hats. You can't watch everything. You just can't. You'll kill yourself,
or drive yourself crazy, and
or that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about what working with you looks like, because I think for me, one of the fundamental challenges I see a lot is entrepreneurs or business owners who are too busy to put up the white flag and say help. And that's one of the things I see is when drowning people are drowning, they get tunnel vision and they don't know that, just put your feet down and you can touch bottom or reach your hand out. So what does working with Robyn look like?
Well, when they're drowning, you just yell, learn to swim.
Throw them the manual on how to swim, right?
Best of luck. Here's my SOP on swimming.
Read it when you get a chance, or
which is
not.
how some business owners do operate with their staff. So it is a little bit funny.
Yeah.
So working with me is very much like an accountability coach. I'm not here to judge you. I understand that this life can be terrible. It can be awesome, but it can also be terrible. Um, but I am going to take up space in your calendar. That just is. And so what I tell clients is expect to talk to me an hour every week, at least in the beginning, right? Because I need you to get in the habit of taking time in your calendar to work on your business instead of in your business. And so what we do is the first plan we work on is a 5-year plan. So I take up an hour a week on coaching calls, and then about 3 hours for 2 to 3 hours every month for strategy session. And the first thing we do is a 5-year plan. Why? Not because you know what's going to happen in 5 years, but because it gets your brain in this focus of planning without feeling too serious, right? So a lot of people, I think, start with a quarterly plan or a 1-year plan even. And that feels too serious because this is going to sound weird, but it feels real, right? It feels too real. It feels like a lot of pressure to be like, where do I want to be in a year? But if we can start talking about where do I want to be in 5 years, for a lot of my clients, that ends up being like, well, I don't really even want to be in this business in 5 years, or I want to own this business, but I don't want to be in it, right? Like I still want to make money from it, but I don't want to be in the operations. And so when we can start to look at where do you want to go as a person, then we can align how your business grows and develops to match that, to meet you there, instead of just grinding yourself into oblivion. And then from there, we take that 5-year plan and we work on this over several meetings. So it's not, okay, today you've got to make your 5-year plan. It's written in stone, and I hope you like it because that's really all you're going to get. And we work through these iterations, these versions of this plan. Then we start to talk about 1-year planning. Okay, great. So we've set the long-term vision. It could change. Lots of times at the end, my coaching is really like 2 to 3 years. And then we kind of end our engagement unless they want to stay. At the end of that time period, we look at the 5-year plan, and a lot of business owners are like, well, that was silly. Why did I put that in there? But it got them in the right mindset. So we work through these plans, and I'm a little bit demanding in terms of like, you will show up. We booked a time. You will show up. I'm here to be your accountability person because ultimately we are the least accountable people in the world, because we are our own bosses. So ultimately, if I'm like, I don't want to do that, no one's going to be like, well, you should really do that. My staff isn't going to tell me that.
Nope.
Anna for sure, but not the rest of my staff. And so having someone, like if you're going to the gym or you're hiring a nutrition coach or anything like that, I'm giving you this accountability. And then I write all your notes in your words verbatim. It's a skill I've developed over many years, but I literally type them as you're talking in the way that you would talk. So when you get your coaching notes back and your plans, they're in your voice, exactly how you would say these things versus like how a business consultant might say something in like MBA speak that doesn't make sense. But it is ultimately buzzword, jargon, because I've had clients come back and say, well, I didn't say that. I'm like, you did. Because this is your words. We had one client that was like, I hate all my employees and they can't do SHIT. And I typed that in his notes. And then he's like, well, I would never say that. And I'm like, but you did. And then so it starts to develop this, oh, people actually listen to me when I speak. And I have to really think about how I lead this business, how I lead myself. But we work through all these plans. So we get the 1-year plan, and then we do tactical plans in each area of the business: sales, finance, marketing, operations, HR. And along the way, we're really teaching business owners how to put in, I want to be careful how I say this, how to put more structure, corporate structure. I don't want anyone to feel nauseous about the word corporate, but corporate structure into a business, because a business that runs on the owner is not scalable or sustainable. There's a reason that even larger privately held businesses that have departments and department heads, and they have this structure. There's a reason that typically, unless they don't collect their receivables, that they typically stay in business for a long time, right? Or they sell for some astronomical value. And it's because they've developed a business that doesn't rely on us as business owners to keep it running. And that's really our end goal. But it takes time. You can't learn that overnight.
Well, and I annoy people, but I point out that I've yet to meet a billion-dollar company that is a solopreneur or has all weight on one person. It's just not possible. And I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed at the possibility because, again, creating SOPs, that's for weirdos like you and me. We wake up and go, oh, I need an SOP for that. Most people are like, okay, I'm going to do this once. And then, oh, how did I do it last time? Whereas I'm like, if I got to touch it twice, I don't want to think about it a third time. So I do it. But the other thing is delegating. In my experience, most startups, especially, they don't know how to do it or they know how to do it well. So they either over delegate, they micromanage, or they abdicate. They just say, well, you figure it out. I tried that with a VA once. I said, could you figure this out for me? Bad idea.
You have to learn the abdicate is real, right? Like, hey, I delegated this one task. That's pretty cool. Well, now I don't have to do anything. Like, she's got it. She'll do everything. That actually happened. I have 3 kids on my last maternity leave. My baby is almost 1 now. But I had a great team in place. I thought everything had a system. I thought, we were doing great. I said, I can leave. No one will need me. And what ended up happening was that we really didn't have, this is on the marketing side, we really didn't have internal, things still got done, but they got done in chaos. And I ended up losing a couple clients. And I had unhappy clients that stayed, but I had to play this game of apologizing and ensuring that it wouldn't, and then you spend the next couple months just like trying to be perfect at everything so you don't annoy them any further. And someone that I know, another business owner was like, well, that's your team's fault. I says, absolutely not my team's fault. It's my fault. Like, the buck stops with me. This is my business. It doesn't matter even if one of my team members yelled at a client. Like, ultimately, it's still on me. And so when I came back from maternity leave, I had to really dig in and say, okay, what systems and what processes do I have to put in place now that I thought were here? That clearly maybe I wrote them and they just don't functionally work because I don't do that functional work. And so it really took working with my team to say, okay, where did we fail and what can we learn from doing that?
I love that. And, it's funny. I have a friend who's a coach. He's very mean. The first thing he requires, if you sign the engagement letter, you have to take a month off from your business, no communication. He wants to see what breaks. Now, I'm not that mean because that can kill a business. Like, especially, the 100-hour work week people. And by the way, it makes them twitchy because they're like, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. I'm a little gentler. I ask them to notice what called your attention on the weekends. When you're with your family, what's pulling you to work? And I'm going to be honest, the lack of awareness is fascinating to me because they don't realize that, well, I went for dinner with the family. Yeah, but you were on your phone the whole time.
Well, you're checking your email.
It's like, were you there? It's it fascinates me. And I think we'll circle back to our original point is that a lot of entrepreneurs, they can't go home and tell their spouse, oh, I'm having trouble at office. They can't tell their employees, and they definitely shouldn't tell their clients. So they believe I'm alone and I have to fix this. So how often do you hear that in your first conversations?
I don't always hear it in those exact words because I think that feels like failure. right? Like I'm alone. I think a lot of people are unwilling to admit pain. So where we start to get it to come out, maybe not in those words, is starting to ask kind of, what are your goals for the business? Well, why haven't you got, what's been happening to this point? What are the repercussions? What's going to happen if you don't accomplish these goals? What happens to your business? What happens to your personal life? Right? And we start to try to make people cry. Just kidding. We start to try to like dig into the emotional side of owning a business. And
Yeah.
that's where you start to see this. I love Zoom because it's not the same as having a phone call, right? You can really see people's whole body language change from like this posturing of, I built this great, $6 million business. Yes, you did. I love that. Like, that's awesome. But also your wife is asking for a divorce, right? Like, or something like that. Or your kids are like, dad, pay attention to me. Like, oh, dad never comes to my games, right? And those sound like stereotypical things, but it's reality.
Yeah.
To your point, like I was at dinner with my family. I was there. Well, you weren't. Your body was there, but you weren't engaged with your family or even if you don't have kids, right? Like your partner or whatever that might be. And so you start to see this just like body change and this tone change where they soften and they're like, wow, everything, if my business fails, then like I'm a failure. Right. And that's that's where we were like, yes, I mean, you're not a failure, but yes, like this is what I want to hear,
Yeah.
because ultimately, as human beings, we're pain-based animals, right? We don't change unless it hurts. And so you have to get to pain, but in a way that is not actually failing, right? I don't want your business to fail. That's not my goal, right? I want to get you before things get too far. And I think it's hard to feel the pain, especially for those businesses in what I like to call like the messy middle. So they are probably profitable. They are producing revenue. They're in that 2 to 5 to 10 million range. Like from the outside view, the business is working. It looks great.
Yeah.
And so as business owners, we're like, everything's fine. Why do I feel? You shouldn't feel this way. Don't feel this way. Like you're fine. The business, you have money.
You're
right?
successful.
Correct. Uh-huh. And so you really have to dig in and get them to kind of like drop that shield almost. And that takes conversations. It's not me just coming in and saying, okay, well, I wrote this plan for you and here you go and go do it. You really just have to spend time with people and talk to them.
It's funny. I'm remembering a time I picked up a very unexpected coaching client. Both our kids were in a sport and they happened to be on the same team. And one game, I was sitting there watching my son, cheering him on, and she got quiet and her phone was just blowing up. And I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, we ran out of toilet paper at the gym and all of my employees are telling me we're out and I have to go get some. And I just remembered that her son scored a point and he looked to mom and mom
And
was
she wasn't
doing
watching.
this.
Yeah.
And I could see the poor kid's heart break. And she looked up just to see that. And she said, Jeff, are you still coaching? And I said, yes, why? That we need to talk. But it was literally that moment when she saw the disappointment in her kid's eyes. And I'm like, I wish people didn't need that wake-up call.
I know. And the sad part is she probably needed several of those she probably has seen that look several times at that point, right?
Yeah.
And so all over toilet paper, which is crazy because I'd be like, go buy toilet paper then. Like,
Yeah.
why are you asking me about toilet paper? The grocery store is down the street. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Literally.
we'll do better at our ordering next time. But today I need you just to go solve the problem.
It literally, the fascinating part was she didn't want to give anybody a credit card, so she had to do it all and blah, blah.
Oh my God.
And like 2 blocks from her gym was a store. And it's like, just go down the road, get it. I'll pay you out of petty cash. But again, I think a lot of entrepreneurs control things
Mm-hmm.
out of that need to feel wanted and needed and in control, but they resist the systems that give them actual control rather than the feeling of control.
Yeah, well, systems feel like constraint.
Yeah. And
And
for what it's worth, when I first read, I think it was Rocket Fuel or Traction. I was like,
oh,
"How dare
traction,
you
that's a
do
good
this
one.
to me, Gino? You're constraining me." And then
Yeah.
I reread it and went, "Oh, thank you, Gino." It was that setting me free to do the things I meant to do,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that the other things are being done.
So what I will say is that I think most entrepreneurs are at least a little bit ADHD, and they like we should put we in there.
Yes.
We like the excitement of chaos, right? Because we get to be the hero or the firefighter, whatever that might be, right? We get that hit of serotonin and dopamine, right? Like, oh, I solved that fun toilet paper problem. I'm the boss, right? Like it feels terrible and good at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's only a feeling that like entrepreneurs and ADHD people will understand and be like, yeah, I love and hate that at the same time.
Yeah.
But your brain starts to thrive on those things, right? Like, I did it, I did it, I did it. It feels like accomplishments when it really is punishments. And so what you need is someone to be like, no, 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 no. Like you've got John. John can go do that task
Yeah.
because you pay him to do this task. Like you don't have to solve it. And so a big part of what I do with clients is when they start to say, well, then I had to do this. And then someone asked me a question, I had to answer that. And then I didn't get to the, they're all over the place, is to say, what I do with my team is like, why don't you come? You need to come to me with a solution.
Yeah.
It could be wrong, which is fine. I'm totally fine if you come and you're like, here, we have this problem. Here's what I think we should do about it. And even if it's absolutely the wrong thing to do, at least I've gotten my team now into this brain space of Robyn doesn't want to hear it unless I have a solution, at least some idea, right? Because you're taking up my mental capacity over something that like I don't want to deal. I just don't. I don't want to deal with it. Be gone. And so because if I have to deal with it, then I'm going to rabbit hole into it, and then I'm going to deal with it forever, and no one's ever going to do it again. But that takes time, right? So I say this to my clients all the time: is no, you don't need to solve that. Like put it down, right?
Yeah.
We need to tell our team to solve it. Well, what if it's wrong? Well, too bad. Like it might be wrong. Maybe they make a mistake. Oh no, what could
Yeah.
happen? They'll learn something.
Is
Like,
it
come on,
irreversible? And
yeah.
and for what it's worth, I have a theory I will share with you because I feel like we're aligned. I target my show is for visionary entrepreneurs, whether they admit it or not, or they know it or not. Almost all entrepreneurs have some neurodiversity, whether it's autism, ADHD, or both. Amazing number of dyslexic people become entrepreneurs because we feel we've been constrained by the system. And the other fascinating thing is there's research that we actually have dopamine receptor deficiency.
Oh.
So we need the rush of a burning dumpster fire to swoop in with our cape and go, I got it. And
Yeah.
it's fascinating because one of the things I do is I take away their matches and say, no more fires. And boy, do they start to twitch.
Yeah, it makes them uncomfortable. I had a client many years ago that their business was working. Like the teams were doing what they were supposed to be doing. The owner had like theoretically nothing to do except guide strategy. So it feels like nothing, right? And he would go away for like a month at a time, and then he'd come back and micromanage dumpster fires. Like he would create dumpster fires in his own business because he was bored. And so one day I was like, dude, you take up skydiving. I don't care. Go do something else that feeds this need in your head, to like feel that excitement. But it's not going to be in this business. My clients will tell you that, like, I say we a lot. Like, this is our business now. Sorry, like that's just the languaging that I use. So I'm like, get out of my business and go take up skydiving. Go do something else. And he did actually go take up skydiving. And it worked because he was then able to feed this need for excitement, adrenaline, whatever that might be,
Yeah.
without messing with his business.
Well, it's funny. I wish I could remember the source, but long time ago, I'm going to say it was the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy, Robert Kiyosaki. I think somewhere in what he teaches, he said something to the effect of business should be boring. And I was like, wait a minute. And then the
Mhm.
follow up was, if you need excitement, go get a hobby. And I think that's one of the challenges with entrepreneurs is they can't separate business from self. Therefore, they put all of the excitement and, I used to live in R&D forever, and it was like, no, 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 we need to pave the path for the money to come in, and then we do R&D.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Business should be boring. Your business should be boring unless
Yeah,
you're like, I don't even know, do something that is like emergency related, but
yeah,
your processes should be boring.
yeah,
I tell people that boring is sexy, right? But I think you're to your point of the business becomes their identity is when you meet business owners, you're like, oh, what do you do? Almost always they're like, I own a business.
yeah,
Not my business does this thing, right? Like
yeah,
I manufacture medical devices, whatever, right? Like you, it's always, I'm an entrepreneur, I have a startup, I own a business, right? And so they've created this identity
yeah,
of like, this is me, not this is how I make money, which I think is where more corporately structured businesses, um, there's a clear designation. I am the CEO of XYZ company, but I also am a rock climber or whatever it might be, right? They have a clear like this is a job. I have a job
yeah.
and then my job is done and then I go do other things, right? And small business owners, their life is their business. It's like their second baby.
Yeah, and often that's the problem is you or I are coming in and saying, sorry, but your baby's ugly.
That is true.
But it's fascinating, and I'm going to pull this apart because there's a thread there. But when it comes time to sell, a lot of small businesses end up shutting doors because their baby is adorable to them, but it's a big
Hmm.
scary monster to someone else. But the big thing I want to point out is you mentioned you run 3 businesses. A lot of my guests, for some reason, the average is 5.
Oh, that's a lot.
But again, I'm going to say it's because of the ADHD.
Yeah.
But the fascinating thing, now that I think about it, um, the difference between the serial entrepreneurs who go from business to business is that it's all built on them, whereas the ones who have multiple businesses at once, I have one who has 7. It's all about the systems and the corporate structure that you use. I'm going to use the word stable. They've got stability built in, um, but it is fascinating that it's not the identity of I'm an entrepreneur. I'm usually, by the time they own 7, believe it or not, philanthropist or investor becomes their mindset.
Yep.
And I think so. How do you help people with that identity? Because I feel like that's probably in coaching our greatest enemy is a fixed identity.
Yeah. Well, I coach a little bit differently from one of our other coaches, who is the founder of Strategy Leaders, Andy. But I like to get to know my clients, which I know is crazy, maybe. But I like to know, like, what do you like to do? Right? Like, how do you speak? And oh, you have kids, or maybe you just got married and you're a newlywed, or you really like to play soccer with your friends on the weekends. I don't know, whatever it might be. Um, I like to learn about you as a person instead of, in addition to, I guess, how your business works. And I think being able to have those conversations, like, I'm not just here to talk about your business. I do want to talk about that because it is how you make money, right? That's how you're going to be able to exit, and have money and not live on cat food. So, um, cat food's really expensive right now, so maybe that's a bit. Canned tuna and ramen noodles. I don't know.
Yeah.
But um, but I think once you start to pull out like the person, they start to be like, oh, I'm a person, not just this LLC, right? Like I'm not just my business. I am a person. And so I'll check in. A lot of my clients do work out. They go to the gym or they play a sport, not like competitive sport, but a sport or whatever. They like to paint. I don't know. I don't have
Fun fact,
anyone's that like to paint, but
fun fact, Robyn, I'm anecdotally learning that most entrepreneurs can't tolerate golf. They either hate it because of the time commitment, or they get too into it and then they compete and they want to go pro, and but it's the
entrepreneurs do that. My husband is just like that. Not with golf, but like if he does, our daughter does archery. And so he started to do archery. And he's like, now I'm going to be a pro archer. Dude, you could just like enjoy the fun of it. But a lot of entrepreneurs do that. They're like, if I'm going to put effort into this, I'm going to make it a business.
Yeah.
It's essentially what's happening, right? Like, I like to go to the gym. I'm a competitive strong woman, but like, it's not my identity. It's
Yeah.
not my business. I used to coach. I don't coach strength anymore, right? Like, and because I learned that I didn't like it as much when it became a revenue generating activity versus just something that helps me like focus my mind, clear what I'm, like not think about work. But that happens all the time. Like you just get I think it's the ADHD thing. It's the same. You see it with people with ADHD who take up crafts.
Yeah.
Right? Like now I'm an expert painter, paint by numbers painter, right? Like whatever it might be. And I've bought all these things so I can do that. But it does directly feed into that.
We love our rabbit holes, and I think the biggest myth about ADHD is we can't focus, because we have hyper focus, and controlling our focus is the real issue.
Mm-hmm.
Now I could talk to you all day because you and I have so many things in common. Where can somebody go to learn a little bit more about you and maybe find out what working together might look like?
Yeah. So obviously there's always my website. I guess that's probably the most obvious one, strategyleaders.com. And probably the place I'm most active is LinkedIn. I'm an open connector. So if someone requests me, even people that are trying to sell me things, I will accept it. If you immediately try to sell me something, I will remove your connection, but that's not the point. And I'm happy you can pop my email or whatever. And I'm happy. I love talking to business owners, even if you don't want to work with me, even if you're just like, oh, well, she said some outrageous, funny things and I just want to talk to her. I love hearing about other people's businesses. I think it's just fun to see how people run their businesses and what they're doing. I might pick up things from you too, right? To say like, oh, well, I never really thought about doing this. Let me let me see how that might work in my business, right? Because we're all here to learn from each other. I think we are our strongest community if we are willing to get past our egos to talk to each other.
I love it. And early on, you mentioned that a lot of your clients are in the transportation and travel. Do you have a niche per se, or do you sort of welcome all conversations with our people?
We welcome all conversations with privately held businesses that the business is sitting on your shoulders. I want to talk to you. Even again, if you don't want to if you don't work with me, if we're not the right fit, it's totally fine. I do have a specialty in the hospitality and transportation space and private aviation, things like that, because I've been in that industry for, I think I'm at 16 years now. But my stronghold in that industry is almost all growth and marketing. And I just really love that space, but I love the construction guys and the home service guys. I just love small business. That sounds so crazy, but it's just the way I am.
My rabbit hole of choice is the small business community, because, I'm pretty sure that Jeff Bezos doesn't need my help. He'll be okay. But the person who fixes my plumbing when something breaks, I want to make sure they're there when I need them. So I'm obsessed by the locals. I want to thank you, Robyn. It was a great conversation, and I loved getting to know you. So thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. It was awesome.